Let's be honest, spring fishing can be frustrating, extremely frustrating. One day, the fish are rising like mad, the next, it's dead, nothing's happening, the fishing is difficult, and you're left wondering if you're doing something wrong. If you've had a few tough sessions recently, you're not alone, but the fish are still there. And in this video, I'm going to show you what to do when trout just suddenly stop playing ball. From fly selection, to retrieves, to weather shifts and how to respond to fishing, pressure, now that more people are out fishing and it's actually dampening some fish just simply because more people are fishing, and more. These are some quick fixes that you can do right now to turn a blank into a banger. Let's chat about it. So first of all, let's chat about why this is the case. Why the fish just suddenly go from feeding like crazy and they're easy to catch and you can put flies in the water that you think are going to work and they do work, and then suddenly they go off. Let's chat about it. Well, the number one reason is that spring is a transitional time. Water temperatures mainly are still changing, and trout can be up 1 minute when the water is warmer and fly life is starting to hatch out. And the sun itself, if the sun is up in the sky, it doesn't necessarily put off fish at this time of year because it makes the flies start to hatch like crazy. So those different changing climatic factors actually influence the fish and what they're doing. Now, it can be the case that sudden change is actually a bad thing, and that's what puts the fish off. They have to acclimatize to different fishing situations, different climatic situations, and we need to change with them. So as tricky weather changes things, we need to change our flies in order to respond to that. And it's no wonder that some sessions go sideways when the weather's going sideways. So as the weather's changing, that's when you need to change flies. So let's describe the scenario that everyone's probably seen at least once this spring. You turn up to your local trout water, whether it's a Stillwater or it's wild fishing. Fish are feeding actively. You can see fish feeding, so you start on maybe something that you think is going to be able to catch those fish on dries. So dry fly fishing is really good at this time of year, but it's so patchy throughout the day that almost no scenario dries will continue to work really well throughout the whole day, because simply the fly life hatch isn't there all day. They are extremely sporadic. You'll almost get patches of 10 to 15 minutes where flies are hatching off like crazy and you can catch 2 to 3 fish in that span of time on dries very easily. You're covering 1 or 2 fish and you'll get a reaction from them immediately because they're ready to eat flies. They're seeing flies hatching off around them, and if you've got the right stuff on, you can catch them. Now, the key to spring fishing, to keep catching fish even after that 15 to 10 minutes is gone, is to change down in the water column. The fish are still there and the fish are still feeding, but the key is that they've stopped eating on those hatching flies and are now eating on the larval stages, or the stages of the fly that are in the water column. So if you notice that fish go from feeding like crazy on the surface, you're catching fish on the surface, to now no longer catching fish on the surface, the fish haven't gone, they're just simply down in the water column. My favourite thing to do is to fish a dry fly and a couple of nymphs, or 2 dry flies and 1 nymph, and then when the tactics need changing, just take off those dry flies and put on nymphs instead. Now, it's fair to say that they'll keep eating the same sort of colour just under the water column. So if you want to keep fit, you say you're catching on olive CDCs, olive shuttlecocks, then fishing olive nymphs or similar colour nymphs to whatever dry fly you're fishing under the water column will do well. Now, that's one of the key things that I don't see people doing enough, is just simply changing to the weather pattern. We were talking about how crazy weather changes the situation. You need to change your flies in order to change to the situation. Number 2 is recognising when fish have been pressured. So fish can go spooky quite fast, especially on popular waters. And if you're seeing follows but with no takes, or you're seeing fish moving around you and you're seeing a lot of fish in the water column but with no takes, that's probably a sign that these fish have been fairly pressured and that it's time to try and react because of that. So there's a few things you can do to try and catch pressured fish. And my favourite one is to remove the colour. So it's likely that if fish have been pressured, they have seen an awful lot of colour. from people using lures, people fishing fabs, people holding up flies using coloured lures. It's very common for people fishing for stocked fish to at least use a little bit of colour. So if these fish have been heavily pressured, I would go to straight nymphs, like straight lining on a floating line, just nymph patterns. Dry flies if they are moving about on the surface, but we've chatted about that, it's not always the right time to use dries. And other stuff that just doesn't have an awful lot of colour. So that can include lures, but go into much darker or olive lures, like black and olive. Those are the things that I like to do when actually fishing for pressured fish. My favourite thing to do when fishing for pressured fish is to go somewhere else. So if you've got a body of water that has an awful lot of people fishing a very small area and those fish are heavily pressured, cover more water. My third tip, which is linked to the second one, is cover water, move, hunt the fish. Staying in one position is one of the biggest mistakes I see. If you're seeing signs of fish, but you're not catching them, I would move. I would probably only spend 15 to 20 minutes at a spot if I wasn't comfortable with it, or if I felt like the fish were spooky and had been cast at an awful lot. I think I would move. So covering water as that third tip is so important. I think that a lot of people could catch more fish simply by covering water and not sticking it out in one location. Cast along angles, cast along the bank, try and use wind lanes and slicks. Cover that sort of water that you can potentially see fish being in. They all matter. They all absolutely matter. So try use that tip if you're seeing pressured fish in front of you. Tip number 4 for spring fishing, and this is linked to the dry flies again, but also nymphs, is degrease your leader. Spring fishing can bring about times where now that there's an awful lot of sun in the sky, you're going to be using a leader that is shining like a bright light on the surface if it's not been degreased. Now we've talked about this in a couple of other videos, and I do have a full tutorial effectively on how to degrease your leader in a video where I'm at Wellsfield fishing dry flies. So go and have a look at that if you want to see me degreasing leader actively. But for degreasing leader and why it matters here, let's chat about that. So it's so overlooked that if you're fishing dry flies and you're just simply getting ignored, degreasing your leader is probably one of your main issues that you've got here. If it's not cutting through the surface and it's sitting on top, you will get refusals and you'll be completely ignored by fish. So this is a huge one for spring fishing, to be able to catch those fish that are feeding on dries when they come up, when the opportunity is right. You need to seize that when it comes along. My last tip is don't be afraid to use lures. Now, when I say that spring fishing is hard and those fish quickly turn off, that doesn't mean that they're not going to take a cat's whisker flying around in front of them or a blob pulled through the water really quickly. Fish can turn off with flies quickly as temperatures change, but that doesn't stop them from being the aggressive trout that we know and love. So don't be afraid to use lures, especially if it's on pressured fish. Just using darker coloured lures can still work extremely well. So don't be afraid to chuck around a lure still in this spring period, even though that there's fly life hatching off everywhere. Some of the best days I've had stocky bashing is in spring, when these fish are in the water, they're seeing fly life everywhere, they're feeding actively, you can still get them on lures. So don't be afraid to try it out. Now, to wrap up, spring fishing isn't always easy, but with these quick adjustments, you'll stack the odds in your favour to be able to catch more fish when it's tricky, read to the water, and catch the fish that are in front of you. You can't always have easy fish to catch, and this is how you can maximise your chances. So let me know in the comments what your go-to fix is when it goes quiet. Like and subscribe if this helped you, and good luck out there. Tight lines, guys. Now, if you want to grab yourself any of the flies in this video or any other fly tying and fly fishing materials, go and check out My Fishing Flies in Grangemouth or on their website, myfishingflies.com. They have loads of stuff from loads of flies, everything you could ever need. Go and check them out. Really high quality stuff, and Dale and Tracy are lovely. They'll help you out. Thanks, guys.